Kevin Bowen here. Don't forget to listen to The Fan now on 93.5 or 107.5 FM, and check out our latest coverage online at 1075thefan.com.
And the Colts have their first win of 2022. Kevin Bowen back, another edition of Kevin's Corner. Eddie Garrison is across the way. Eddie, I don't think you'll ever hear me joke, make fun of, put light out winning in the NFL. I do think it's super, super difficult. I think we get into these Monday reaction periods, and you'll hear me say this often over the next few months. I think you put things in a result box or a performance box. The result box, of course, is did you win, lose, or hell, I guess draw, and how the Colts have unfolded this season through 3 games. And then performance is a lot deeper. That's a lot of what I liked, what I didn't like. How does what happened in 60 minutes on Sunday impact the rest of the season? But again, everything is either, for me, performance or result. And the result yesterday is the Colts won that football game. Did they get gifted things that I would dream to see as gifts as a kid on Christmas Day? Without question. We'll explain all of that. We'll go over all of that. But when you haven't won a football game in 2 years in the month of September, you look at the AFC South yesterday, and now all of a sudden they look like a juggernaut against the AFC West.
Right.
At some point this season, Eddie, the Colts are going to have to make up for the 2 that I think got away in week 1 and 2. And got away isn't the right term, but those are 2 games in May you penciled down as probably wins. This is a game on Sunday you did not pencil down as a win. You got one of those back. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think you could breathe. You can a little sigh of relief. Huge games coming up here with 3 divisional opponents in the next 4 weeks. Tennessee and Jacksonville being the 2 teams you expect to be there at the end alongside you as well. A wild game, crazy game. Good to see you on this Monday morning.
You as well. Hope Max had a great weekend. So did Rosie and the rest of the family.
When the Irish score 50+, it's a good weekend in the Bowen household.
I know, right? You got a little delayed birthday present there. Notre Dame with a big win.
We had to teach Max patience. We had to teach Max a little patience that sports fandom can be cruel at times. And then I believe him and Mom took in the game yesterday from home, and a 20-17 win. I want to start here before we get into what I liked and what I didn't like. I just think the post-game emotion from Frank Reich in the locker room says it all. I said on Wednesday's pod, Eddie, I felt like Frank Reich was feeling some stuff. I felt like Frank Reich was acting a little differently. His words weren't that different, but just acting.
Yeah.
And how do you not? Just a human being. Frankly, I'd be a little worried if he wasn't acting differently. And just watch the post-game locker room celebration if you haven't, because that's Frank Reich pretty unhinged. And you don't often see that from Frank. I remember the San Francisco locker room having a little bit of that feel last year for him, but I think that's a guy realizing all the chatter that was going around. And if I were him, I personally would have taken the game ball and just walked it down to the visiting locker room and handed it to Chris Jones.
Or Doug Tobe.
Yeah, Dave Tobe. Yeah. The special teams was a disaster for the Chiefs, and obviously the Colts had their guys in their own locker room with the defense that we'll get to. But we could easily be talking about a winless football team right now.
Mm-hmm.
And think about that when you're paired up with the Raiders and the Texans through 3 weeks. But, and I'll say this a lot over the next hour or so, you hung in there. And I'm a big believer in you can do with luck what you make of that. And I know that might sound weird. It's like a weird phrase, but there will be opportunities to take advantage of luck over the course of 60 minutes. But how well you play, how well you hang in there, how well other units complement each other allows you to turn the luck, turn the gift into wins. I think there's a lot of bad football teams yesterday that would have taken a muff, taken horrific kicking like the Chiefs had, rare misses from Mahomes at times, a rare drop from Kelsey in the end zone, and they still would have lost that football game.
Mm-hmm.
And the Colts did not lose that football game. So major kudos to this team continuing to do what they do in the Frank Reich era. And that is more often than not, when the backs are against the wall, they find a way. Again, they got help, but they found a way to get it done. And in the result business, you need to get a W in that column, with Jacksonville now at 2-1, with Tennessee winning a game yesterday. And that sets up just monumental games coming up here over the next 4 weeks. We'll hit more of that on Wednesday's pod.
Like I said on Wednesday, how Colts would it be if they went out and won?
Dude.
Sure as hell they did.
And just in general, like, how NFL was it that the AFC South goes 3-0 against the AFC West?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been the first one to make jokes of the AFC South all year long, call it the true TV division. But boy, yesterday, and really Jacksonville and the Chargers, I mean, that was a beatdown.
How was it with Jake being one of the only 3 people on the fan to pick the Colts?
He did go with the Colts over the Chiefs on that one. So he certainly didn't waste any time alluding to that and getting to his ego stroke early on a Monday morning.
So what'd you like?
But yeah. Let's get into what I liked. I think you start with the defense. When we talked about the blueprint last Wednesday, Eddie, I said I felt more confident in Jonathan Taylor side of the blueprint than the defensive side of the blueprint. I mean, Taylor had what, 20 for 70? Something along those lines?
I think it was like 21 for 76, I think was the final.
I mean, nothing astronomical by any means, but yet your defensive blueprint, pretty much job well done. There's the wild stats with the Mahomes and the Chiefs you hear all the time. Of when the Chiefs score this amount of points with Mahomes, they win, 99.9% of the games. He's 20, or I should say the Chiefs are 28-0 when opposing teams have 340 yards or less of total offense. He has 2 losses in his career against those teams. Those would be the Colts in 2019 and the Colts again yesterday. I don't think did the Colts crack 250 in the game?
Let me look.
259 total net yards. 259. The Chiefs are 45-0 when opponents score 26 or fewer. The losses, 45-0 against the rest of the NFL, 0-2 against the Colts.
Wasn't there another one that they were like 33-0 when holding somebody to 20 points or less?
Yeah, that would probably check
2
that
losses
box as well. It's wild to think that the Colts have been this thorn in Kansas City's side. I don't know if you call 2 games a thorn, but
it's more of Andy Reid. I don't know. Sorry to interrupt, but I saw this yesterday. I was scrolling through TikTok, ironically, and I guess Andy Reid is now 3-10 against the Colts in his career.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
I would not have guessed that at all. I can't imagine he's got many opponents with a losing record, let alone 3 of 10. Speaking of 3 of 10, that was the Chiefs on 3rd down yesterday. And I just thought in general, Gus Bradley's unit did a tremendous job of hanging in there. 7 of 10 drives reached the Colts side of the field. They were put in 2 awful situations with short fields, and yet they just hung in there. I thought one of the most critical moments of the entire game was Kansas City comes out of halftime, and look at how Kansas City treated the end of that first half. It was almost like, dude, we're fine. It's the Colts. Have you seen them on offense today? That's literally what I felt like Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy were saying to Patrick Mahomes as they ran off the field. And part of me was like, yeah, I guess I understand their line of thinking there. It's 14-10 at half. I wrote my notes. When will the Colts defense wilt? When will they wilt? And then I also wrote underneath that, don't rip them when they do. They did their part for the first 30 minutes. You have got to play complementary football to withstand what Kansas City is going to eventually do. And they come out in that 3rd quarter and just kind of methodically move down the field. They don't get into a single 3rd down until they get to that 3rd and 1 at the 15. Ends up being a 4th and 1. They run the fullback up the gut. They get a 1st down on the very next play. They've got a 1st and goal at the 3-yard line. And I'm thinking right here, all right, they punch this in, they go up 21-10, and in my opinion, the game's over. I didn't think the Colts were able to score, 2 more times and 11 points. Obviously there, you need touchdown, 2-point, you need the field goal.
Yeah.
I just, nothing from what I saw from that offense made me think they're going to do that. And they stopped them right there on the 1st and goal. McKinnon for 1 yard. Pacheco for no gain. 3rd down was that weird kind of like Kenny Moore, like just had his back turned to Mahomes the whole time, and Kelsey didn't even react like it should have been a flag. It was kind of like an awkward play on 3rd and goal. And then they kick it on 4th and goal. Or they were going to kick it. They got to delay a game. They kicked it from the 7-yard line. And it was another one of those moments where I'm like, what is Kansas City doing? Do they want to get their field goal reps? Or why would you go for it on 4th and 1 earlier in the drive, but you don't go for 4th and goal from the 2? But that was just a moment, Eddie, where I'm like, boy, this defense is doing its job, keeping it a 1-score game. It never got to 2 scores. I thought 2 scores would have been the breaking point.
Yeah.
Because then you need score, stop, score, and then if you're going to win the game, you obviously got to get a stop at some other point. I just didn't think they were capable of doing that. But the fact that you kept it 1 score, kept the crowd into it the whole time, I think kept hope in it the whole time, and the combination of rush and cover. You hear this a lot in the NFL. The Colts had, 1 sack and 5 hits on Mahomes yesterday? That doesn't tell the full story. They found the great balance of disrupting him enough, moving him off his spot when the Colts dictated it, not when Mahomes dictated it. Mahomes wants to move. We know that, but he wants to do the movement on his own ground, on his own terms. The Colts made him move. I thought that was huge, and I cannot say enough about the back end of the defense. Eddie, think about this.
Stephon Gilmore.
Hello. Certainly. The tackle on Kelsey on an early 3rd down, just beautiful textbook pass breakup. Well, I should say deflection to Rodney McLeod for the game-sealing interception. Think about what the Colts did entering Sunday. They made 3 notable lineup changes in their secondary. They benched Nick Cross. They started Rodney McLeod. So you start Rodney McLeod at strong safety, and Cross had played 100% of the snaps week 1. Week 2, they dialed it back. I think it was just over half. Him and McLeod pretty much split time. And then obviously yesterday, McLeod out-snapped him. McLeod played every single snap. Cross played 1. But then 2 other lineup changes. We mentioned Isaiah Rodgers last week. He played over 20 snaps, rotating in with that nickel package. He hadn't played a snap in the first 2 weeks of the season. And then a 3rd lineup change. We didn't see it until an injury happened, but Julian Blackmon exits with that ankle injury. And I'm thinking this is a red flag. First off, any team in the NFL, when the deep free safety on the opposing team leaves the game, if I'm a coach in the press box, I'm radioing down and saying, deep shot, test him, let alone a rookie replaces Blackmon, and a rookie who had never played a defensive snap in the NFL. It wasn't Nick Cross. It was Rodney Thomas II out of Yale. He goes in there, and he handles his own. I mean, he made a beautiful pass deflection on one play over the middle that ended up being a holding penalty, so it didn't matter. But he was sound and solid. Think about that, Eddie. 3 lineup changes, all pretty notable. In a week, you're playing Patrick Mahomes. And you don't, what did they have? 1 play over 25 yards? Was that Juju?
They had 3 over 25. They had Noah Gray with the 26, Kelsey with the 29, and then Juju
30.
53.
They had 1 over 30. I knew it was small in a little bit of chunk plays.
That was something I was going to say I liked, is the fact that when you look at when they only had 5 plays over 20 yards, and when you think of that Chiefs offense, you think of explosiveness and around 8 to 10 a game, but you hold them to about 5.
And 1 over 30.
Yeah.
If you want to take it a step further. And that was the incredible sidearm by Mahomes to Juju, who then took off for about a 50-some yarder. That is just a major hat tip to the secondary. I mean, losing Blackmon, he's one of your most important players. And losing him in game, this goes back to kind of a credit of the type of character that Chris Bauer believes in.
I think to the preparation that everybody had this week coming in, like everyone was on their P's and Q's from what it looked like.
When you draft high character guys, they should have a level of self-motivation that they can be ready for those moments. And Rodney Thomas II certainly was that. So as humiliating and awful of a defensive performance you had the week prior, job well done by that entire group, and particularly the D-line and particularly the secondary. Gus Bradley for making some, personnel changes. I like that, that's something where you're sending a message. You're not afraid to change things. You realize the week-to-week manner. I know a lot of people will ask, why don't you think Nick Cross came in for Blackman? Could they have moved Rodney McLeod to free safety? That's where I thought, well, can you put McLeod at free safety and then put Cross at strong safety, which he's more comfortable in? Clearly, they drilled Rodney McLeod at strong safety all week long. They wanted him in that role, and then they obviously had a level of trust in Rodney Thomas to play free safety there. Mahomes wants to hold on to it, but he wants to hold on to it by choice. I thought yesterday the Colts kind of made him hold on to it. And there weren't even moments. I guess you had the first third down of the game when Kenny Moore got beat. But, Eddie, you didn't have moments where Mahomes uncorks a deep ball and with us up in the press box, we can look down and see the all-22, and you just naturally go, oh, shit, oh, geez. Like, you clearly see something that could be there. They had one of those plays, and that was that first third down, which he slightly overthrew Smith-Schuster. That was it. So, game ball to the entire defense.
I know that he probably didn't get enough love, but I thought right from the get-go, Kwity Paye on that first play for Kansas City got Mahomes off his spot, comes back with a nice tackle on the second play. I was like, oh, boy, look at Kwity. But like you said, Kevin, they were able to get Mahomes off his spot from the very first snap.
Yep.
And I think that's even more important for that defense and even more important for Mahomes. You're like, oh, bleep, these guys are coming in. If they're coming from play one, are these guys going to be coming at me all day like this?
And continue to stop the run. Through 3 weeks, the best player on the football team is Grover Stewart.
Oh, yes.
There's no debate about that.
I love me some Big Grove.
It's just a non-starter. Teams, I think people worried, would you be able to stop the run with Eberflus gone because that was such a big focal point? Grover's like, yep, I got it.
He does so much in the run game that nobody gives him.
Huge. And he's disruptive. I talking to him last week, I was like, dude, it's not just your space eating. Like, you're making plays. And, you just don't see that.
His get off the line of scrimmage is one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's an extremely impressive athlete. What was the other thing that I sent to you that I liked?
You said you liked the defense and then the final drive poise.
Yeah. Eddie, when the trade for Matt Ryan was made, and again, in no way can you say this, I think, without it coming as a shot at the previous quarterback, so I apologize for that ahead of time. But I just felt like the Colts would look at their number 2 in the huddle in late game situations this coming season and have some belief and have some confidence. You want to look at the post-game locker room? Again, I just think, listen to how the players react to Matt Ryan breaking down that huddle. I just think there's a difference in him. 14 years in the NFL, the amount of respect. He was 8 of 10 on that final drive. And, the Colts really haven't had those moments much at all.
No.
In the Reich era, there haven't been two things. There haven't been many of those moments. And when they have had those moments, they haven't produced. Now, again.
Outside of 2018.
We'll get, sure, and obviously the quarterback helps. We'll get to the penalty here in just a little bit that kept that drive alive. But for Matt Ryan because he does not get absolved from all the blame here when we get to the pass protection stuff. And in general, I just think Ryan, it's a little shaky with his awareness right now. And, you got him here to be the chess match guy at the line of scrimmage, and I don't feel like the Colts have that advantage. Enough of it so far. But he clearly recognized that Kansas City was doing everything they could to take away Michael Pittman. And if you watch the touchdown, they cheat a safety over to Jelani Woods, and boom, he takes a chance with Woods in man coverage. He obviously was comfortable throwing it to Pierce. The Pierce and Woods plays, both those are second and longs.
Yeah.
And if those fall incomplete, you're in a third and long, and now it's starting to get a little nerve-wracking inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. So just, Frank Reich often praises Matt Ryan, his ability to move on to the next play. I think there's a lot of truth in that. If you just have a quarterback that moment, those moments will not be too big for him. There might just be physical limitations with him in this offense that limit the Colts there, but mentally, it shouldn't be a worry. Obviously, Pierce and Jelani Woods, those plays, just vital. You guys know full well the criticism I've had for the pass-catching group. How do you not say job well done to Pierce? He had the high point of the ball down the sideline early in the game. That's the play we saw every day at Grand Park. It was in one-on-ones, and honestly, Notre Dame and Indiana fans, they saw that against their respective teams last fall from Alec Pierce. But that's the stuff we saw every day, and that's what I thought would translate to the regular season. I thought to myself, throw him 2 of those balls a game. And he probably comes down with, let's say he comes down with 35% of them. That's huge. That's enough. And then can you incorporate, if a cornerback is sitting on that, can you get the comeback route like he got on the final drive to where that corner's thinking, oh boy, here comes another jump ball, one-on-one situation. Colts going to take a shot at the end zone, and then boom, Pierce puts his feet in the ground, and he stops, and there he is for, whatever it was, 14-yard gain on that final drive. What can that last drive, when you got to the 26-yard line, your final 2 completions were to 2 rookies, what can that do to their confidence? That's a question I think you have to have, an encouraging question that you have to have coming out. It wasn't just that you had a game-winning drive. It was that you threw the ball to 2 rookies, and they both made plays in those moments. Were the catches the greatest catches in the world? No. I mean, Woods' catch I thought was very impressive.
Yeah.
Hands catch, definitely wasn't like some easy, wide open. Pierce was a little bit more in the routine form. But that's where you exit this game and you think, all right, if those 2 can bottle that up and build off that, can you alleviate an obvious concern on this football team? So I just thought in general, starting with Matt Ryan and his poise, obviously that drive started with 9 minutes to go in the game. For you to believe in your quarterback and then execute in that moment, that's important. That's important moving forward because you're going to be in other situations like that throughout the season.
You mentioned the confidence for Pierce and Jelani Woods, but what about the confidence for Matt Ryan? Like, to be able to trust those guys in those big, when you need plays like that going forward, because primarily, Pittman had been the guy that you needed to make those plays, or Jonathan Taylor, but now you see Matt Ryan get the ball to Alec Pierce. He makes 2 big plays that they needed. Jelani Woods with 2 big plays that they needed. Going forward, I think that's only going to help Matt Ryan have more trust in those guys, so you don't see him standing in the pocket, batting the football, and then getting a little bit of a happy feet or trying to escape the pocket to make the play last longer. Because I tweeted this out, I think, in the first quarter. It was on that 4th down near midfield. And Ryan had Paris Campbell open across the middle the entire time, but he's standing there holding the football. I'm like, you got to get rid of it.
Yeah, that's one where I just thought the free rusher was right in his face. And we can get into this a little bit later. I didn't like the play call there. I thought it was too slow developing. Yeah. Free rushers have been in Ryan's face all game long. And, why even stick the ball in the belly of Taylor there? That just makes it even slower to develop. I will say, just in general, you're 3 games into the season, Eddie, and those that have drafted Mo Alley Cox and or Paris Campbell in fantasy leagues are quickly regretting it. So
even Nyheim Hines maybe a little bit too.
Sure, that's a good point. With those 2 guys not turning to them in those situations, that just adds to the Pierce and the Woods importance. Should we move to what I didn't like?
Let's go for it. The first thing that you had on there, offensive line.
Eddie, it's probably unfair just to say offensive line. Can I just say the pass protection operation?
Fair.
It extends deeper than those 5 guys. Are those 5 guys the major culprits? Are they struggling right now? Are they playing nowhere near like the number 1 highest paid unit in the league? Without question. You're having individual breakdowns. You're struggling with stunts. And the free rushers, which again is deeper than just the O-line, way too many of them. And the inability to either know where they are coming from, know that they're free, but then finding the hot read. You watch around the NFL, there are free rushers time and time again, but the ability to know where they're coming from and find the quick out, find the hot read, and take advantage of that is huge. It's gotten to the point, Eddie, where I'm watching Matt Ryan and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, Nick Foles is going to start multiple games for the Colts this season.
Mm-hmm.
I think Matt Ryan's going to get hurt. He has been sacked 12 times through 3 games. He's been hit 28 times. he is on pace. If you take those 12 sacks and let's knock off the 17th game, because that always makes things weird when guys have played 16 games throughout some of their career and 17 now, the last 2 seasons, that would be on pace for 64 sacks.
And 149 hits.
Those are horrific numbers. Matt Ryan's career high in sacks, 48. Career high. He's been doing this for 14 years. And he's on pace right now for 64. And I just think you obviously wonder about his health. You wonder, like, does he get gun shy at any point? You know, it's kind of a human instinct. Like, at some point, you're just going to be, oh, God, where's that pressure coming from? Or where am I going to get hit this time? And on the free rushers part, it is some combination of a Matt Ryan, Ryan Kelly issue. And that, I think, is what is very frustrating to watch, in that you have 22 years of combined experience in those two guys. And yes, they're new playing together, but still. Mm-hmm. I mean, the A-gap right up the gut. Like, it's 15 years of Ryan, 7 years of Kelly. Again, this is supposed to be where the Colts have a strength. What they lost in Carson Wentz was a guy that keeps some plays alive. With his legs, his, escapability, all of that. What you gain in Ryan is you stay out of needing to keep plays alive.
Yeah.
You find simple better. You have an advantage at the line of scrimmage over 90% of the teams and the defenses that you play, and I haven't felt that with the Colts. So you need better. And Frank Reich gives full autonomy at the line of scrimmage to his quarterbacks. You need better from Ryan. The Colts have a whole lot invested in their, standard operating procedure, I believe is the acronym or the SOP that they use for game planning, for pass protection each week. And right now, man, there are struggles. What you are losing in the boneheaded plays, you're supposed to be getting in the smarter plays. There's still the boneheaded stuff. And you could make the argument that you aren't finding simple very well. So, again, you can give slices to the pie to everybody. You have Matt Ryan issues. You obviously have individual questions. Do you make changes to your offensive line? I think those are questions we can get to when Twitter time rolls around. They just kind of handed Danny Pinter and Matt Pryor starting jobs in the offseason. Not a lot of competition there. Chris Reed, did he want to go back to Minnesota? I'm sure that probably played into some of it. Mark Lewinsky, obviously. But, again, we talked about the depth of the O-line. No starts outside of Dennis Kelly from anybody. Mm-hmm. Will Fries was never a serious threat at right guard. And Pryor, while he has, position flex, it's like, well, you want him to train at left tackle. How much can he go over to right guard and possibly compete with Danny Pinter for that job? Obviously, Pinter just looks physically overmatched right now. So I don't know if it's a position coach issue with Chris Strasser, if this is mainly personnel. Again, I think you put blame a little bit everywhere. And in short yardage, you just don't have an advantage. I mean, I'm team QB sneak it virtually every time.
Yep.
In those moments, they finally did it. And, I know people were like, why did Jonathan Taylor jump so early on the one? I'd argue he had to jump that early. Kansas City reset the line of scrimmage 2 yards in the backfield.
Yeah. I thought the formation was interesting on that. You show it on tape now that it's there. There's a possibility. Now I think you fake it to Taylor and you can do a pitch to Hines later down the road.
Was Taylor fullback on that one?
No, it was a split back.
Split back, that's right. Kansas City did the fullback dive.
Yeah.
I kind of like Taylor at fullback, honestly. Just kind of get to the line of scrimmage quick. They see Hines at the top of the eye, if you will, and they don't even know where Taylor is briefly, and boom, you just hand it to him, and you get a yard. But this is an issue. It's an issue, and it's impacting the entire football team right now, particularly that offense. And it's not like you've played these vaunted defensive lines. Jacksonville got some guys, sure. Kansas City's got Chris Jones, but, I mean, Frank Clark and Carlos Dunlap are getting up there a lot in age. There's a reason why they've been on the open market for as much as they have been, particularly Dunlap.
And then the last thing that you said you didn't like was need the gifts.
Yeah, and I want to focus here on, just making sure that the Colts don't sit there today. And based off, Matt Ryan's message in that post-game locker room, I don't think he will bring this, but let's just make sure that you don't think the gifts are going to be there every week. Mm-hmm. And just acknowledge that 60-minute effort the Colts just put on tape yesterday, that will not get them to 10 wins or whatever they want in the AFC South this season. you were fortunate. You took advantage. Part of that is a 17-game NFL season where teams give you gifts. Now, granted, I don't know if I've seen a quality of opponent or a head coach that I have respect in, like Andy Reid, give you as many gifts as they did.
Mm-hmm.
Like, game balls, to me, they go to the defense. Again, they go to Chris Jones, and I would give them to Jim Irsay for opening up the roof and the window. You can make the argument, Eddie, and this is probably the first podcast you've heard me say this. Our listeners have certainly heard me say it. I believe in game flow, and I believe in momentum big time. I think if Sky Moore fields that punt, the Colts lose by 2 scores.
Uh-huh.
And I know some people would be like, that's the dumbest comment I've ever heard. But that opening drive for the Colts was horrific.
Oh, yes.
Like, Ryan and Jonathan Taylor have the little easy pitch and catch out of the backfield. Their timing's off. The ball's thrown kind of behind them. Is it a drop? And then Ryan gets smoked on 3rd down. And you punt it away, and I'm like, oh, jeez, man, that's a horrific start. Kansas City goes down and score, and now you're playing from behind, and you got the ball to start the game.
Yeah.
And Sky Moore drops that, and then the next punt, he totally misjudges it, doesn't want to field it.
I think he was trying to navigate through traffic at the same time. He's like, do I want to catch this, or do I want to, risk getting bumped into and muffing another one? I was like,
it almost looked like he was like, I'm going to act like I want to catch it, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
15-yard difference there.
And
that was huge.
And I watched that Thursday night game against the Chargers, and I watched part of their Week 1 game against Arizona, and he did not look like that.
Yeah.
Fielding punts at all.
And again, I say this in all seriousness. I think the open roof, and sure, a lefty punter and Ashton Doolin humming down there helps, but there's something about that side. Think about all the issues. Kelsey's drop, the missed extra point, the missed field goal. Everything happened down there. Looking towards that area. Sky Moore looking towards that area. Everything was down in that area. CBS flashed up that graphic, Eddie, right after the Sky Moore muff. The Colts had gone 14 straight drives without scoring a point.
And then they score that touchdown, and Jim Nantz says, that's the Colts' first half touchdown of the year.
You needed hope. You needed an injection of life. You needed something. You guys have heard me say this about the Colts when they've played the Jags in some of these matchups. Some of these teams that are kind of on the ropes, and they need something. They're not going to go get it. They need it. The Colts were that team. They needed something. Sky Moore gave that to them. So I think that starts there. Whenever you have a post-game press conference and your head coach is asked a legitimate question on if he thought about the team's starting safety doing place kicker stuff during the game, that's when you know you have a kicking problem. Andy Reid literally asked in the postgame presser, did you think about having Justin Reid kick there at the end? Think about that.
Yeah.
Your kicker is so bleeping bad, you got asked if a safety should come in and kick for him during the game. Kudos to Chase McLaughlin. Kudos to Matt Hawk. 2 guys a month and a half ago, I would have said, what? They're going to be pivotal in the Colts beating the Chiefs?
Who?
And now here they are. McLaughlin good from 43, good from 51. The Chris Jones penalty.
I want to know what was said.
He had to have said some slur of some kind. I have never seen a verbal, unsportsmanlike penalty in the NFL, let alone one without, a warning.
Yeah.
I never felt like...
Or an altercation following.
Usually you see some sort of shoving, some sort of pushing, guys having to be held back from each other. You saw none of that. We had Jeff Saturday on the morning show here earlier today, and he couldn't have disagreed more with it. I know it gets to the Colts that win. I absolutely hate the penalty. And again, I don't know what Chris Jones said, so maybe I should reserve comment without knowing what he said. But to me, there's just an element of emotion in the game, and I don't love when kind of the outside forces, if you will, play such a role in it. Granted, EJ Speed, I guess, tried to do his part on that final kickoff with his own 15-yard penalty. Abusive language. That was the phrase from Sean Smith, the head official. I'd argue this too, Eddie. That was the head referee.
He was standing right there, too.
He was standing right there. What if that happens in the secondary? Does the back judge feel like he's got the clout to do that? Let's say that was, Justin Reed and Jelani Woods after a play. Does that get called? And I'm a firm believer in this. If that penalty does not get called, the Chiefs win the game. The Colts had not made the Chiefs punt, I think, in 5 straight possessions. So you would have had some combination of them getting back into scoring range, milking the clock, doing a little bit of both. The Colts would have had to burn some timeouts. That would have created more urgency for the Colts on their drive. I mean, the Colts had an 8-minute game-winning drive. It's a little bit more methodical than most game-winning kind of 2-minute drives. Yes, Kansas City puked on themselves. But you helped clean up the puke. You didn't stare at the puke. You helped in that category. And I'll reiterate to what I said at the start, Eddie, before we move to Twitter questions. When you get the gifts, are you still in a position at the end of the game to take advantage of those gifts? When Chris Jones does that, is it still a 1-score game? If that was 2 scores, I don't think that really matters.
That's a fair question to ask.
It's not like you're going to come back and score twice in the final 5 minutes of the game. So the fact that you kept it there, and honestly, there's just that mental thinking as well, Eddie, of like, it's a 4-point game, not a 7-point game. So you know if you score a touchdown here, you probably win the football game.
Yeah.
So all of that, I think, feeds into it. So if this was a Kansas City podcast right now, oh my God, you'd be talking about the muff. You know, another play that I thought was big, when they stripped Ryan, they could have scooped that and scored it.
Yeah, in the first half, yeah.
Right. They didn't. Now, did they go on and get a touchdown out of that drive?
Yeah, that was the Kelsey touchdown.
That was Kelsey. God, I didn't love losing Kelsey on the 3rd down, 3rd and 7, and then losing him on the first red zone snap of the game. But yeah, man, the missed extra point. What was the fake field goal?
Yeah. Why?
Why?
You've got Mahomes.
It almost just felt like Kansas City. It was like the varsity playing the JV, and the varsity they were going to work on some things during the game. You know, I'm like, yeah. This is the NFL. You're in a loaded division, all of that. So, in conclusion there, you got gifts. Don't let that think you're a better football team than you are.
Nice job by the Colts, too, to contain Kelsey. 8 targets, 4 catches, 58 yards.
Boy, that's similar to what they did a couple years ago.
I think he had 4 for 80 and a touchdown, maybe. I can't remember.
He had 10 targets a couple years ago.
Yeah, 2019.
Kelsey tweeted after the game, my drop cost the team. Kelsey, Chris Jones, Mahomes, none of them were perfect by any means. But again, make sure you do your part in trying to keep yourself in position to take advantage. The Colts did that. They benefit from it.
Conroy is the first Twitter question. Did the Colts win this game? Did the Chiefs lose the game? While I appreciate people on both sides made huge plays, I can't help but feel like our coaching staff did little to help before the 4th, and the Chiefs did the complete opposite. Tack on a few missed field goal and poof.
Yeah, and I guess I pretty much answered that with what I was saying of, and the Colts for the most part do this. I know last week Jacksonville weren't. The Colts usually don't get blown out. Like, when they lose, they're in it. Mm-hmm. And they clearly were in that throughout. It goes back to performance versus result. You got the result. Now the question becomes, what does this do for your confidence? That 60-minute Colts, that's not going to win double-digit games. But what can that build? Can Jelani Woods and Alec Pierce build on that? Can your offensive line and Matt Ryan and Frank Reich and Marcus Brady and everybody involved with pass protection, can you realize such an issue for this football team right now and try to get that corrected moving forward? The beauty of it is, that's one of your tougher opponents. But at some point this season, you got to get 2 back. You got one of them back right there.
Second question comes from Jay. Did Frank Reich cash in his annual shocker underdog win too early or right on time?
Boy, look at his emotion post-game, Eddie. I mean, I know you saw the same clip I did. It just...
All 3 phases.
JMV and I got in this argument a little bit Sunday morning before the game.
Uh-huh.
Like, I think Sunday with Tennessee means more. And I'm probably looking at it more from a math standpoint. From a math standpoint, you'd rather win the divisional game than win the Kansas City game. But from an emotion standpoint, you'd probably rather win the Kansas City game.
Yeah.
Just with everything that means, you quiet things for a week, you finally celebrate a win, all of that. But again, I'm looking at it from math. And I look at Tennessee coming up on Sunday. Right now you got Jacksonville, a win ahead of you with the early tiebreaker, And remember, if you beat Jacksonville coming up here in whenever you play them, a month, you'll split the head-to-head. The next tiebreaker will be divisional record. Well, Jacksonville's 1-0 in the division, and you're 0-1-1 in the division early on.
Yeah.
If you are to lose Sunday and go 0-2-1 in the division, now all of a sudden you're kind of behind the eight ball. And we've seen these head-to-heads with Houston, back the Watson Luck years. You've seen it with Tennessee in the head-to-heads. Now maybe it's Jacksonville that it becomes more of the head-to-head. So that's why I just think Sunday is huge. And obviously for Tennessee, it's the same feeling.
Beans asks, why did Nick Cross not play?
I hate Beans. Not this human, but just the food. You?
Not much of a bean guy either. Wait, are you talking about like beans in general, like green beans, pinto beans?
I just see him on the shelf when I'm buying some buying some like canned vegetables for Rosie. I'm like, what?
I'll eat green beans.
Yeah, green beans for sure. Black beans?
Nah.
No. Why didn't Nick Cross play? Clearly, they have not felt comfortable with him out there. I did think in camp, Eddie, I don't know if these were the days you were out there, there were a few moments for Nick Cross in camp where the few bombs the Colts hit on, it was largely to Nick Cross, or the ball was so underthrown that he just happened to be in position because he caught up to it and he made a play there. But again, part of this is why you go out and sign a guy like Rodney McLeod.
Yeah.
Have that experience. And you know what, Eddie, how about the play Stephon Gilmore made on that final drive? If that ball is completed, with how that game was going, I have expected Amendola to make it from 55 or whatever it would have been.
60.
Yeah, he had the leg, or at least it looks like he had the leg, but gosh, who would have thought Harrison Butker's injury would be so big?
Craig Raj.
I am curious this. Do we just see those defensive personnel changes? I assume that's what we'll see moving forward. How much of that was Mahomes' defensive specific?
Yeah.
How much of that was the weak outlier of such a unique opponent? Defending them is so different than, hell, definitely Tennessee coming up this weekend. I do think that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Craig, Raj, and Alex. Hey, Kevin. Hope all is well with new baby. Let you drink. I didn't know if you had anything to say there.
No, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Question for the pod. Huge win, but we can't get carried away. Still way too many offensive issues, especially with pass protection. Who is most responsible for all the Kansas City free rushers? On the broadcast, Tony Romo put the blame on Matt Ryan for not making sure everyone has their blocking assignments. Who is the most to blame? Coaching, Matt Ryan, or Ryan Kelly? Concerned that a veteran quarterback can't get a protection right before the play. Seemed like that is an area that Phillip Rivers did so well, but Matt Ryan was looking more like Carson Wentz with missed protection and fumbles after holding the ball way too long. Loved the win, but still have a lot to clean up. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree a lot with this. Obviously, we mentioned 3 names. We got tons of questions on this front. Like the play that Dunlop makes and chasing Ryan from behind, he's got to have awareness there and feel that. Like, you have to feel that. When you're not some freak athlete that can feel it at the last second and run away from it, you've got to feel it earlier than others. And this is such a non-starter for your offense. And when there's questions about the dynamic playmakers that you have, you need your offensive line to be suitable, to be average. Hell, Matt Pryor had a big holding penalty on that final drive.
Yeah.
That could have been a huge part of this. Somebody came up to me at halftime in the press box. They're like, yeah, Chris Strauser will get fired after this game. I'm like, well, I guess he would be the scapegoat. Somebody right now. We had Jeff Saturday on the show, like I said earlier, and I asked Saturday, for you guys, how was the operation? How was that handled? And he said that he would set the protection, and if Peyton saw something at the line that needed to be overruled, he would do that. Peyton would have final say, I guess, on what exactly the protection would be. I believe that's how the Colts still do it. Frank Wright has given all these quarterbacks, I think, full autonomy at the line.
I thought I saw Kelly, I don't know if it was with Rivers or if it was with Wentz. I thought he was making some of those reads occasionally.
Yeah, and maybe it's similar to, I guess, what they had with Saturday and Manning, of the center makes the initial check and then the quarterback makes the final one. I would assume once you get the line of scrimmage, you would only want one person communicating. That would seem to be kind of odd if Ryan's changing the play and then all of a sudden the center wants to change the protection with 3 seconds to go on the play clock. I do think some of those checks to the third down screens, I think some of that is Ryan. Some of the checks to Pittman.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you're just not blocking on the perimeter very well. Pascal, I think, was a big loss there. Doyle, of course, is a big loss. I understand wanting to get Pittman touches, but obviously you lose one of your blockers when you're over there. So the root of it, this has got to be better sifted out Monday through Saturday, and you need Matt Ryan to recognize better.
Brian asks, a Colts win is a win, and we all will take it as a Colts fan. The problem is the same flags seem to be there. The Colts got fortunate with special teams miscues. Will the Colts be able to compete when they are expected to? Anyone can perform when you aren't expected. A true team gets W's when they are expected to.
Well, what's the early line for Sunday? I think I saw Colts favored by 3.5.
Pulling it up now for you.
So
I'm a degenerate, but not that much of a degenerate.
Yeah. Well, what does that say about me? You're gonna have some of that bullseye will still be in the AFC South games.
Flat 3.
I mean, the Colts. We also, speaking of degenerate, the Colts are still the favorite in the AFC South. And they're not. It's not that close. Jacksonville and Tennessee are not that close behind them. So you are gonna have a bullseye in these divisional games. There will be no trap game talk in Tennessee about playing the Colts this weekend. Colts benefit from it. I expected better from Kansas City. I did. I was dead wrong.
Total for that set at 43. A little high for me.
Gosh, that just... Yeah, I guess 24-20. Yeah. God, Tennessee, man. Their skill group. Oof.
Mm-hmm. Dustin, and I know a couple other people have this too, so we just threw in Dustin as the main instigator for the question. Hey, Kevin, with Ryman having guard experiences, there come a time when they will try him over Danny Pinter.
Yeah, Dustin, Bernard Ryman does not have guard experience. I mean, he's got tackle experience. Matt Pryor has guard experience. Eddie, I'm a little torn on this. If you're going to make changes to the O-line, I would think you would make 2. Again, Pryor to me seems the better guard. And then what do you do at tackle? Do you go the rookie Bernard Ryman? Or do you go, what about Dennis Kelly? Seems to be kind of the forgotten guy. Not a ton of left tackle experience, but he's got some. Clearly the most experienced backup of any of your guys. Do you go there? And then obviously the elephant in the room is, do you make 2 starting offensive line changes in the middle? Is it just personnel driven? Obviously Pinter's had his issues. I don't think Will Fries for Pinter would do much for me. I think it's a bigger body. It's more of a natural interior player. Again, Pinter had a tight end tackle background. These are some interesting questions. Bernard Ryman missed the practice last week. He ended up being inactive for the game, so where is he at health-wise? If you're going to do anything, my initial gut says Dennis Kelly to left tackle, Matt Pryor right guard. Ryman's health is playing into some of that thinking for me.
Yeah.
That would be my initial thought.
Yeah. Austin asks.
But to answer the question, I would be surprised if the Colts did something.
Hey, Kevin, for the pod, I'd love to hear your thoughts on McLaughlin. Doesn't get talked about enough, but he made 2 huge long-distance kicks that I don't know if Hot Rod would have made. Thanks, and huge dub.
Hey, man, couple knucklers, but they went in.
That's all that matters, right?
No pictures on the scorecard, baby.
W is a W. Field goals are field goals as long as it goes through the uprights and above the crossbar.
Next Sunday night, Bucks and Chiefs. Is Rodrigo Blankenship kicking for the Chiefs?
No. I think Butker will be back.
What is it, ankle?
Ankle.
Gosh, he's such a weapon, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Butker's, he's got a leg on him.
Justin Reed, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I know we laugh, but Andy Reid literally got asked, can you imagine it, we're in Frank Reich's presser. Yeah, any thought to Nick Cross kicking today? What? Seriously?
Trevor Benbow, you still here, or whoever it was?
Right, exactly.
Colt Maniac. Now we have a W thanks to some great defense. The Colts should have some great confidence to... Hold on here. Let me reword this here.
Yeah.
Let me just get to his question.
Okay.
Which do you think would be our biggest issue? The poor offensive line play, wide receiver core, or lack of quarterback of the future? Congrats on the new baby and go Colts.
Thank you. Well, it's definitely the last one. But in the short term, quarterback of the future is the obvious. I mean, the Colts could win 14 games this year, and that would still be the biggest worry. But again, that's looking a little bit more down the road. Here in the present, dude, I worry about O-line. Am I overreacting, Eddie?
No.
I watch Matt Ryan and think that dude's going to get hurt.
You're not alone.
He is going to get hurt in a game this year, and that thought never crossed my mind with Rivers. I don't remember Rivers taking Matt Ryan's taking some kill shots, dude. I don't remember that with Rivers. Maybe I just need to pop in some film, but I think about those numbers I was saying earlier.
Rivers also checked it down a lot, too. When he knew he was going to get pressured, he would just be all right.
And again, some of that's awareness,
Yeah.
for Ryan. Again, I'm not saying it's all on the O-line, but this dude averaged, I think 34 sacks is the average for him in a season. And right now, he's on pace to be sacked 64 times.
Sheesh.
It just, when you start to get this old and the hits start to add up, do you become gun shy? Or let's say Matt Ryan is a 7.6 on the physical scale for a quarterback. I don't even know what that means. But I hope that people know what I'm getting at. His physical intangibles are 7.6. What if all of a sudden those hits now bring it down to a 6.8?
Yeah.
Does he have the velocity to throw that ball to Jelani? I mean, there's still some ball placement from Ryan that's damn, that's pretty darn good. There are some misses over the field, though, that he's having. Again, it just... Yeah.
All right, last question from Latrell. I can answer the first part of this. Is Paris Campbell playing special teams? No. If not, why? He really seems to just be taking up a roster spot at this point. And oh my gosh, someone rip up every screen out of Frank Reich's playbook.
5 catches in 3 games for Campbell.
Yeah, 2 on Sunday in the final drive.
And didn't he have the one in week 1 where they did the little flea flicker play or whatever to end it?
To end the game, yeah.
Turned into a flea flicker, but pitching it back, whatever. He's playing a ton, dude. I tweeted out earlier, 58 snaps on Sunday.
82%, right, is what the percentage was on that?
Huge number. Pierce 32, Doolin 18, Strawn 6. I'd uptick all those guys and shrink Campbell. I saw a stat earlier. Campbell's run 112 routes this season. 5 catches for 47 yards on 8 targets. It's shocking to me, frankly, that he's playing that much and that a guy that has speed hasn't gotten just touches.
A screen,
yeah, or a jet sweep. I guess he got hurt on a jet sweep, so maybe you have PTSD from that. But I just felt like Frank Reich would give him a couple touches,
Yeah.
None of it.
Well, that 4th down was meant for him. Just didn't have enough time.
Sure. But still, just a little bit more of hey, we a drive starter. Let's get Campbell a touch and see what he can do in the open field. Here's a crosser. Here's a mesh play.
Yeah.
So you can look at that glass half full. Campbell and Allie Cox are not delivering for you right now. Woods and Pierce had a nice final drive. Or is this what to expect from Allie Cox and Campbell? Because, again, you were projecting those 2 guys into bigger roles. That's what the Colts were doing with their lack of offseason moves at those positions. So far, none of it.
Agreed. I know you got to run.
I got to run. He's Eddie Garrison. I'm Kevin Bowen. We'll talk to you Wednesday on the pod. Everybody have a good start to the week. This has been Kevin Bowen. Thank you for listening to another edition of Kevin's Corner. If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher for the best Colts and Pacers coverage.